How about a double dip of Leafs Convo on this day? Yes, we have to come back and clear this up, Mike. Mark Giordano is a Toronto Maple Leaf.
Yeah, as we speculated and as it's been rumored the last couple days, that appeared to be the Leafs' target. And from what has been reported, and Chris Johnston and Elliot Friedman and Kevin Weeks and a number of people have broken this deal in pieces over the last few minutes. Kyle Dubas was to his word. He didn't give up any of their top prospects. He didn't give up a first-round pick. He did give up, according to CJ, 2 seconds and a third. Okay. Now, there were moves made before this, and it's a little confusing, but they had to be they don't have to be cap compliant every moment of the day, but apparently after 5 p.m. there's essentially some flexibility because they've placed players on waivers. And leading up to this, they sent down Nick Robertson to the Marlies. Okay. They waived Kyle Clifford. They waived Peter Mrazek. And they signed a KHL goaltender named Harry Sateri, who was a AHL goaltender in the past and had a really good year in the KHL and won a gold medal for Finland. I believe that Sateri was added as the replacement for Joseph Woll because Joseph Woll is injured. He was injured against Hershey a couple days ago. So Mrazek, if he clears, which he probably will, that clears $1.125 million on the cap.
Okay.
Then they trade Dermott, and that clears $1.5 million, and they didn't retain any salary. Clifford clears $1 million. Robertson clears 700 or clears I think 925. But then they sign Sateri. Now, if Sateri clears waivers and he goes down to the Marlies, then he's going to be he's not going to count on the Leafs cap. If he stays up and is the backup for Shalgren until Campbell comes back, then Mrazek is down with the Marlies. All that leads up to the trade, and we haven't gotten the final details yet, but it is assumed that half of Giordano's contract is being retained by Seattle. Okay. His contract is $6.75 million. So Blackwell, I believe, was making $900,000, and that's not. We'll get into the specifics on Blackwell, but he had a really good year last year with the Rangers. So he's $725,000, so he's less than the veteran minimum.
Okay.
So there you go. And Giordano is 675, so half of that would be $3.325 million. So all this being said, so they made these moves, and then on top of that, they had to give up 2 second-round picks and a third-round pick.
Sure.
They didn't give up a first, and they didn't give up any of their prospects. In that instance, that's a home run. Now, whether this will be the final piece to the puzzle, I think it'll improve their defense. I'm still a little questioning the goaltending situation. I would assume that they believe Campbell is coming back fairly soon and that they can push through with Shalgren. And they don't play again until Wednesday. So that they can push through another week with Shalgren as their goaltender until Campbell comes back. And, Mrazek being put on waivers doesn't mean that they're sending him down to the Marlies, but I would think that this means that they need to clear that salary to be able to make this deal. So I think Mrazek will be down with the Marlies. And the other thing that is up in the air and nothing has been said about this is the status of Andre Kasha, who left the game yesterday with a suspected concussion. Mm-hmm. If he goes on LTIR, then that might allow them to bring Mrazek back up as the backup or as the number 2 behind Campbell or behind Shalgren.
And this is the second of 2 Leafs Convo collabs on this day, March 20th. 2022. We are hours away from another NHL trade deadline having come and gone. The Maple Leafs picking up Mark Giordano. Mike, we talked about this in the first portion of our collabs today. Giordano joining this team will help, but he's not necessarily the final piece to a championship puzzle. If we could have, wrestled this guy away from Calgary several years ago when he was a Norris Trophy winner, I mean, he makes a much bigger difference then than he does now. That said, the Leafs, in a lot of ways, are in a position of beggar, right? Not so much that they have to bring somebody in or they're screwed. It's in this moment, something needs to be done to not overhaul the team, because that's impossible, but to improve the team, at least from a morale perspective, and then beyond that. And just through gauging in the comments right now in this chat that's taking place in front of us, um, the OGs may not be content and over the moon with what just took place, but they are happy that Kyle Dubas went ahead and made this move. And there was a lot of math and a lot of entanglements that had to be untangled to make this to make this come true. I guess just give us your assessment on how you think this uh, serves as a potential burr in the saddle for this team, as it has 20 regular season games to go. Will fight for positioning and do its very best to do something of substance in the playoffs for the first time in decades.
Well, first of all, based on what we were talking about on the convo earlier this morning, this is a keeping the pace move in terms of what Tampa and Boston and Florida did. Now, we know that what the shopping list for Kyle Dubas was. He wanted to get a depth forward.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to get a top 4 defenseman, and he wanted to get goaltending help of some sort. And he didn't want to give up a first-round pick, and he didn't want to give up any of his prospects. All those things are checked off. They got a forward. Blackwell had 22 points with the Rangers last year. I talked to Russ Cohen, who covers the Rangers and is a Rangers fan, so he knows Blackwell well, and said Blackwell is an excellent forward. He had, I think, 27 points with Seattle, but he was playing higher in the lineup. And, he's a good fourth line guy who can play center. He's not big, but he's feisty and energetic. So that fits sort of with the fourth line motif.
Mm-hmm.
We know Giordano. Now, question is, how does Giordano fit? I saw that David Pagnotta from the fourth period said that the indicators he was getting from Leaf players, like in the locker room, they are overjoyed at this deal because Giordano is a good guy. He's known by some of those teammates, and he will fit in well. Obviously, with Brody, he was a defense partner with Brody for years in Calgary. Yep. So you find a sort of a good fit there. Maybe Riley with Lyubushkin until Muzzin comes back. Brody and Giordano on the second pairing, and Sandin.
Do you think that's the instant connection? Those two, not so much because they had chemistry, but they know each other, and just for ceremonial purposes, why wouldn't you play those two guys together? Riley can play with anyone, really. Well, whether it's good for Riley or not is another thing, but he is the number one defenseman on the team. So if he has to make adjustments, so be it.
Well, Riley is the number one defenseman, but as the last few weeks have proved, when he played with Liljegren, and it was too high in the lineup for Liljegren, it didn't work.
Right.
They got exposed. Sandin playing his offside didn't work. Okay. Lyubushkin did work because Lyubushkin's a stay-at-home type, and Riley can freewheel. I don't think it's ceremonial. I think the familiarity. I mean, when you're getting somebody 15 to 20 games before the end of the regular season, and it's somebody that you need to sort of get into the flow of things. Being able to play with somebody you played with for years is a great fringe benefit. So I think they'll definitely put. Now we know the best pairing on this team would be Riley and Brody, but they don't have the luxury until Muzzin returns to play those two guys together. What they may end up with is Riley playing with Lyubushkin, with Brody playing with Giordano, and with Muzzin and Hall as the bottom pairing. And then Sandin and Liljegren you mix in, and if you're going to go with a pure veteran lineup, or it allows you
Right.
to sub in and out. I mean, that's very possible. But I mean, I can't say that I can't deny that the Leafs defense, when everybody is healthy, is markedly better than it was before the deadline. Because
Well,
Travis Dermott was not a factor any longer.
yeah.
He did change the scenery, and Giordano was an upgrade on either Liljegren or Hall or
Sure.
whoever sits in the lineup.
Yeah, and Giordano hasn't won a Stanley Cup, right? So he's come to the wrong place to see his dreams finally come true. But in this moment, on paper anyway, the Leafs are better than they were several moments ago. And at this point, based on what the team has to work with, that's all we can ask for. Will it come to pass? Will will Giordano's presence serve as a bit of a kickstart for guys who are trying to find it? Just add some positivity and some confidence to the locker room. That remains to be seen. I certainly hope that's the case. Mike, here's the question: how does Giordano's presence limit goals against for a team that can't seem to keep the puck out of its net? And the goaltending's been what it is, but collectively, team defense has been mediocre at best for several months now. How does his presence tick this thing in the other direction?
Well, okay. First, being the experienced player that he is, it's a calming influence. I mean, obviously, I think that at this point in their careers, the physical prowess of youngsters like Sandin and Liljegren. I mean, they're young, they're really fast, they're strong, but experience, especially in the playoffs, is a benefit. I think that, and somebody in the chat was saying, well, he's an offensive defenseman. I think he's been pretty good defensively his entire career as well. But this is a puck possession team, and you want that's their modus operandi. So they want to possess the puck, and he can fit with that. Now, Pierre LeBrun just reported that the details here: a second-round pick in 2022, a second-round pick in 2023, and a third-round pick in 2024. So the third-round pick that they got for Travis Dermott, which was Winnipeg's third-round pick, Winnipeg's probably not going to make the playoffs. That pick will probably end up in the top dozen of the third round, and the Leafs' second-round pick was going to be in the bottom 5 or 6, 7 maybe of the second round. So it's a drop down of about 15 to 20 slots.
So all the pick heads are going to be losing their minds tonight. And we were talking about this in the first show, right? Does it make any sense to mortgage the future and move out players who may be stars for you don't even know they exist at this point, just to save face for the rest of the season or to marginally get better? That debate will be had, even if we look at what Kyle Dubas gave up and say, you know what, all in a day's work, especially when you're at the trade deadline, and especially when you have a team like this, regardless of the the impression, that has to still do something and show that it's still in the game. Maybe that's what was given up, is par for the course when you're trying to do business in the NHL, especially at this juncture. Mike, I wanted to throw something out at you. The March 8th game, the Kraken Leafs, I think the Leafs won it 6-4. Yeah, Colin Blackwell picked up a goal and an assist. Was he auditioning that night?
No, but honestly, that shorthanded goal that he scored, I mean, really, I mean, it was sort of a turning point in that game, on a William Nylander turnover, by the way. He is a fast, feisty player. Yeah. So you can add him to your PK mix. But and he's a UFA at the end of the year, so there's no guarantee that this is anything more than a rental, just like the Lyubushkin trade, just like Giordano. But that doesn't mean that like these guys that the Leafs can't get them re-signed. So you don't want to give away draft picks for nothing, but when it's not a first round pick, I mean, that the thing about the Foligno deal, like I was in favor of it. I thought it was a good deal, and he got hurt, but they gave up a first, and then he signed someplace else. And when you're left empty handed after trading the first round pick, that was the one thing that the Leafs didn't want to have happen this time around.
David Hayna, Giordano is definitely an upgrade for the top four. One of Norris at 35. So, how does this work now, Mike? You're much deeper and much more interested in the minutia of these contracts and where it goes from here than most, and that's why I get paid the mediocre dollars. Mike,
Yeah.
if only you were a writer back in the 60s and 70s, bud, you'd have your own island today, man. But
yeah, sure.
Anyhow, so Giordano goes on a run with the Leafs. It either ends at 4 or 5 games in the first round or 4 or 5 games into a Stanley Cup final. What happens after this season?
Well, I mean, let's just say this. Kyle Dubas is not worried about that right now. I'm sure that, we don't know if, this is the end for Giordano, whether he's going to retire after this year, whether he wants to continue his career. I'm sure that, once the season is over with, after the experience of what happens in the next month or so, and then into the playoffs plays out, if it's a positive experience for him, he's a Toronto kid.
Yeah.
He's always wanted to play in blue and white, so he's going to get that opportunity. And after that, we'll see, what happens. Now, in the chat, yes, 50% of the salary was retained, so he's a $3.325 million cap hit, or 3.375, I think it is.
And Pridham and those guys were doing the math before they pulled the trigger on this deal.
Yes. And okay, for those concerned, and but we'll talk to the people who are the draft nicks, because I'm partially that myself. The one thing that the Leafs have done, and I think the Leafs have proved over the last couple of years, is their ability to recognize talent when they don't have first round picks, aka Nick Robertson in the second round, aka also Matthew Nyes in the second round in 2021. They didn't want to give up those guys because they hit the jackpot on them. At least right now it looks like they did. And they've also been able to sign undrafted free agents, whether in the OHL or in Europe, or in U.S. colleges. They've been able to bring Alex Steves, who they signed out of Notre Dame, has been really excellent for the Marlies, and could be an NHL player down the road. So the fact that they don't have like all 7 picks of their draft doesn't mean a lot, because they have the ability to go out and get players outside of the draft, and the reason that they you get your good players when you draft in the first round, and they kept their first round picks.
Yeah, if you want to do business in the playoffs, you're going to have to give up some of your future to make things happen now. Last thing, James GK, do you see the Leafs doing any other moves between now and
between now and 3 p.m. Monday? The only thing I can see is if Sateri was a replacement for Wall, which I think so, and they're sending Mrazek down. That means you have 3 goalies down with the Marlies, and you have 1 with Shalgren. Now, that doesn't mean that, by Wednesday, I don't know if Campbell will be back, but that means it may be a paper transaction where they put Sateri down to the Marlies and then call him back up, and he will back up Shalgren. It's very possible. James in the chat mentioned Joe Dusak, who is a Marley defenseman who's been scoring at a point per game pace. There's been chatter about him being moved as somebody who they could use to get a goaltender or another player. That's very possible, but I think that Kyle Dubas has done most of his heavy lifting, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is it. Now, one thing somebody just mentioned, Joe Dusak is a Long Island native. He was signed as an undrafted free agent, and the name in the chat that was mentioned by O-Dog Chung was Zdeno Chara.
Oh, never mind. I said James
No,
Reimer.
no, Dave is probably the guy who put out there. I have to say, there were a bunch of friggin' idiots out there, and some good reporters fell victim because some loser who's got no life and and a lot of time on his hands put out a fake tweet or a fake picture of the Leafs trading for James Reimer as part of this.
How do you guys fall for that still? Like, come on.
Well,
I mean, it happens.
I didn't. I look for the check mark.
Well, Freddie Freeman signed with the Blue Jays 15,000 times before he actually signed with the Dodgers last week,
Carlos
right? Because all of the accounts that were created suggesting.
Yeah. Thank you, Carlos Baerga. Because he was the one who put it on Instagram. He said Freddie Freeman's going to sign with the Blue Jays.
The Matt Chapman trade is better, actually.
Well, defensively, but yeah,
so I mean, for sure, and that's the thing. He's no Josh Donaldson, though. But
yeah, but okay, anyway. Reimer is on long-term injury, right. And honestly, unless you want most of Leaf Nation to have a stroke when that guy comes back, he should never play another game in blue and white, please.
Right.
I mean, I know Mrazek is a challenge right now, and okay, if San Jose wants to trade Reimer for Mrazek, I'd sign up for that, because then you're clearing 2 years of Mrazek's contract for one bad year of Reimer's. But no, thank you.
Right. I think we just have to have fun between now and whenever this thing ends, right?
Sure.
What else are we gonna do? I am not expecting the Leafs to run the table here and win the division, win the conference. I'm not expecting them to win in the first round. Am I hoping they do what I'm not expecting them to do? Yes, of course. I want to be wrong. I absolutely want to be wrong. I'm not like some fans who just want to be right. I'm not about that. I hope the Leafs prove us wrong. I hope that we can see a team between now and game 82 that limits goals against in a big way. Am I believing that will be the case just based on Mark Giordano and Colin Blackwell joining the team? No. With Jack Campbell coming back and playing all world, perhaps just for one last go for this season, then things may change. But let's just try to enjoy this thing as much as we possibly can, and hope that the brass and the intelligentsia that is running this organization, has a plan for this year and has a plan for seasons beyond, with the idea that the goal is to win a Stanley Cup with sustainability, right? Last word to you, Mike, and then we'll get out of here.
Yeah, I think this was the move that we expected. I think that Kyle Dubas did a pretty decent job here. But will it make a difference? We'll find that out in the first week of May.
OG's Converse, thanks for being in the chat. There's like over 100 people here. That's huge for us. And we know that everybody is going to go to the content on the YouTube channel. Check out what we did this morning. Get yourself primed for the show that, in a lot of ways, was reporting the news as it was happening. Mark Giordano is a Toronto Maple Leaf. Coming home. Will he be a Leaf beyond this season? Who cares? Let's just find out what happens between now and whenever this thing ends. For Mike, I'm Norm. We'll talk to you soon. The convo is out.